We need to talk about Manchester United just for a second, and I'll tell you why, obviously, throughout the video. Welcome back to Honest McKenna channel. It's good to have you guys. I want to get into this fairly quickly because I was not going to make a Manchester United video tonight. In fact, it's probably beyond me to even make a Manchester United video. I'm not a Manchester United fan. I'm, in fact, a Liverpool fan. But I'm kind of sick of seeing these same old, boring narratives that Manchester United play out, and some people try and make up some form of Erik ten Hag is responsible for a majority of these issues. Manchester United, of course, lost 4-3 to a fairly well-constructed, but at times gettable, Bayern Munich team. And you know what? That's part of the frustration this evening. The game finished 4-3 to Bayern Munich. And even though it looked like they could tear Manchester United to shreds at any moment, Manchester United also created their own chances. And that is why I think it's important to contextualise what is going on at Manchester United right now. What is going on under Erik ten Hag and why sometimes progress can be painful. Listen, every Liverpool fan will know it. In fact, Arsenal fans will know it. Chelsea fans know it. There are plenty of teams within the Premier League who have reached Champions League heights in recent seasons who know that growth, change, difference can be quite difficult to stomach, especially at the very top level, where the margins, the 1%, the 0.5%, the 0.2%, the very 1% of the 1% makes all the difference. And in fact, one decision, one moment, one time where you fall over can make a massive difference to a game, especially if you're a goalkeeper. And Manchester United this season are changing a key component within their side. Listen, I could absolutely rip Manchester United to shreds for the way they construct the back line, the non-existent defensive midfield, the lack of tracking, which plenty of YouTubers have spoken about. But you can't rip Onana for a moment of what some people might say is a lack of concentration. Other people might just say is someone trying to use their technique to get rid of the ball in a certain way. And it just hasn't worked. Like, goalkeepers are all about judgment in that moment. If a striker miscues a ball, you don't go, he's absolutely rubbish. You just go, well, you'll get more. The problem being, if you're a goalkeeper, that moment could result in a goal. And the real problem for Onana is he's already had a few of these moments this season. Now, he may be that high-end goalkeeper this season that people sort of go, he's got a rick in him. Alisson has been through that. Ederson has been through that. Lots of high-profile Premier League goalkeepers who went on to, by the way, basically be greats of the league before they've even left it, before they've even retired out of it, have had those kind of seasons, have had those kind of questions, have had moments where they've either been surprised by the ball, their weakest of all of their skill set is exposed, sometimes with feet, which is clearly not a problem for Onana, sometimes with judgment, which at times is a problem for Onana, and sometimes with just pure saving ability, which is definitely something that is not, I wouldn't say it's Onana's strongest suit, but, you know, under weaknesses, you've put eczema here. And part of the issue is, as a goalkeeper, that's sort of what you're meant to do, is make the saves. So I get it, like when people want to focus on that, what I have to credit is obviously Onana's, I don't think it's brave at this point. If a goalkeeper comes out and does so many interviews, I feel like it's not brave. Contextually, it is a good thing to take responsibility for it, but when people are then congratulating Onana, I actually feel what he does when he does these interviews is not negate the criticism, but he kind of quietens it down a little bit. And actually, some of the vitriol, some of the anger that United fans are feeling at some point has to be felt. And that's why I think it's a real issue at the moment. United feel a little numb. I've been through this as a Liverpool fan. Arsenal fans have definitely been through this. When you've been through a period of lack of achievement, underachievement, any of these things, you begin to get a little desensitized to it, right? And I don't mean that in like a critical sense. Like, I just remember feeling that in periods of Liverpool's recent history, not under Klopp, I've always felt something under him, but before that, right? And it stops you from probably going through some of the pain, from going through some of the turmoil that you need to get through as a club, not just as a fan base. I'm not saying only the fan base or any of the players or any of these things are important. And I actually think it inhibits the process. United's fans' anger needs to be heard right now. And I'm not even just saying about Onana. I think most of them can forgive him a mistake or two when he's starting out within the side. But this is a top-end goalkeeper. This is a guy who's been in the Champions League season after season. This is a guy who's been to Champions League finals. This is a guy who's lost in Champions League semi-finals. He has experience. At this point, there should be an element of knowing what it is that you want to achieve, what it is that you want to do, and how you're going to structure your goalkeeping skills to do that. Now, of course, coming into a new side and being exposed in the way that he is, and when I say exposed, I mean exposed to a lot of shots, exposed to a lot of unusual or a high volume of shots, especially against Bayern Munich, when Munich, Musiala, like just name any of the frontline players, Gnabry, Kingsley Coman when he came on, Harry Kane in particular in some of his hookup play, just ethered through those guys. The lovely little touch from Kane, it was actually a really lovely first goal. Like in terms of goals and the way they go, that was actually a really lovely first goal. On top of that, they've lost, who was a fairly critical left back. Their centre-back pairing doesn't quite seem to be clicking at this point, and fair enough. To an extent, I actually think in recent seasons, some of the rule changes, some of the issues that they've had, I don't want to say I blame Martinez. I don't think Martinez is solely to blame, but I do think there are times where not being able to be the butcher, not being able to be that aggressive player that he normally is, whether that's down to the rule changes or whether it's down to him being inhibited in some way, or maybe it's down to a role change, has changed his overall demeanour on the field. It's not to say he's a bad centre-back. I think people are able to adapt. But I think broadly, like, you kind of know what I'm saying in here, right? On top of that, I still think United lack the right back. They have right backs, but they don't have the right back. And, you know, arguably Wan-Bissaka's injury and lots of other injuries within the team is currently inhibiting them. It's probably really stopping some of Erik ten Hag's overall progression. But again, I'll go back to my previous video about the Glazers and about the way the club is being constructed. That's not all on him, although some of it is. It's a build-up over time of what is going on at Manchester United. Injuries, lack of the correct resource, lack of being able to balance out a squad, people in red zones, people in injury areas, all these kind of things. Like, these are things that catch up with managers. Sometimes, obviously, you have to push your players. You have to push them into a mental area that they do not want to be. And in the past, that has resulted in injuries in players, not only for Manchester United, but for plenty of sides. Flip it the other way now. And this is where my defence of Manchester United begins. Rasmus Højlund is a fantastic player. I wouldn't, obviously he's not a Liverpool style player right now, but I wouldn't say I would reject him from that squad. I liked his goal. I know it was deflected, but I did like his goal. I like what he brings to the front line, the space he creates for the rest of the Manchester United players, the challenges, the physicality, everything else that he's bringing at the moment is clearly something that he's enjoying levelling up. It's something that we saw Erling Haaland go through when he first came to the league, Darwin Núñez, similarly, Cody Gakpo. There's lots of players who you see go through it, right? And that, especially when you're watching it so rapidly, it's a vibe. It's something you just like look at it and go, this guy's going to be good for Manchester United. Scoring on your debut in the Champions League for Manchester United is special, and that needs to be acknowledged. On top of that, I think some of the support play is fantastic around him. I kind of like what Casemiro and some of the other midfielders are doing in set pieces. I just think in open play, they still feel relatively floaty. And obviously in defence, that floatiness just multiplies time after time after time. There has already been all these videos about the tracking of the players. There's already been all these videos about how the shape should work, whether there are spaces in certain parts of the field that Manchester United don't want to be leaving. I think Erik ten Hag is still working on a lot of those issues. In fact, you can see players know the position they need to be in. They don't necessarily acknowledge or fully have come to grasp the role that they need to play in that area of the pitch. That must be frustrating if you're Erik ten Hag. You know a huge element of that is on you. The knowledge you have up here needs to be out there. And at the moment you can kind of see he's a little bit inhibited. You can see he knows there is a vision. You can see there is he knows there is a place this team is going, but it isn't there yet. So you can't quite say, you know what we're capable of, you know what we want to achieve. You have to show that in order to get to that point. But at the same time, you rely on your players to have that level of investment. And so tonight, with the headlines of Sancho playing FIFA or whatever at EA Sports, at EAFC, the night of a game, people are going to try and level that against Manchester United. I don't personally have a big problem with that. If you're not in the squad, you're not in the team, there are tiers to this, right? But playing so close to the game is clearly a sign, a public sign, something that should be defended to an extent. And I don't know what's going on with Sancho personally, so I can't comment on that. But it doesn't look good. Does that make sense? You wonder if there are still these elements within the Manchester United dressing room which aren't quite pro Ten Hag because he's not pro them. Fair enough. There is an element of professionalism you might expect from them. But at the same time, Manchester United haven't backed him to get rid of these players, to move these players on, to do what he needs to do in order to get to where he needs to be. And frankly, if they put the power in his hands, I think they will be much further along at this point. Why? He is a top-tier European manager. You cannot be putting this on Erik Ten Hag at this point. It cannot be that you're saying, Erik Ten Hag shoulders the blame for this. I get it. Like, tactically, he's just lost to Brighton. He's just lost to Bayern. Two really great sides. In fact, probably two of the worst sides he could play is what I would like to say. Tuchel, obviously a fantastic manager, really smart, really perceptive. De Zerbi, tactically brilliant. Ahead of him, maybe by 1, maybe 2 seasons, even though he came in after Erik Ten Hag. The complexity, the expectations, all these kind of things. The problem being that Erik Ten Hag has now had some time with this side. The real problem being not that, like, it almost takes away from what Ten Hag is trying to achieve when he's not fully backed. Tuchel will be fully backed at Bayern. De Zerbi will be fully backed at Brighton obviously to an extent he sells Caicedo, brings in other players, and you can afford to back him, right? But the point is, like, Erik Ten Hag has not been fully backed. They didn't move Harry Maguire on. They haven't, I don't think they've dealt with the Mason Greenwood thing very well. I don't think the Sancho thing is playing out particularly well at the moment. It's a defence of Manchester United that I'm coming to here. The actual club, the badge, the concept is the important thing here. The Glazers, the owners, the custodians of the club are not doing the best job that they can. And then also when I'm watching it, I'm like, like this Bayern team are all over you. Like, Kim is the player that Manchester United should have signed in the summer to bolster that back line. Arguably, he plays on the side Martinez plays on, so maybe you wouldn't want to do that. Kimmich could have been available. One of that front line for Bayern Munich just must be available for a team like Manchester United. And it's just kind of confusing as to why they haven't made some bigger moves, why they haven't made what seems to be in more recent seasons some more smart squad construction. There have been moments where you've gone, that tides them over, or, yeah, that's relatively good what you've got there. The Casemiro signing, the Antony signing, the Højlund signing is probably one of the most promising signings of recent years at Manchester United. It's not to say he hasn't had resources, not to say he hasn't had time, but Erik Ten Hag, you could still argue, is taking the edges off. He's chamfering the edges of this kind of rickety Manchester United table at the moment. And let's face it, like, he might be working on the top of the table, but the legs, the stability in the team is still not there. Again, it doesn't fully rest on Erik Ten Hag. Some people might be trying to make sensational videos which say it rests on him. Sorry, it just doesn't. Whilst I get it, it does in the immediate term. The long term is so key here. The long term is really like, hey, you should be only paying attention to the long term, because all the short termism in recent years at Manchester United, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 3 interim managers, 9 managers in however long since Sir Alex Ferguson. You just need to, you're not looking at the whole pie. Do you know what I'm saying? You've got to look like years down the line. That's my trouble with Manchester United right now. At the moment, the pressure is building. At the moment, I actually think the front line is improving. The midfield is slowly taking shape. And the back line is mostly an issue down to injuries or integrating a new goalkeeper. Individual mistakes should never trump where the overall system is going. Even if you feel there are individual mistakes that are not being coached out of a player, even if you feel that you are maybe a few weeks, a month, a little while behind that, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and just go, hey, cool, like, we should just get rid of all of this. It's myopic to do so. Manchester United scored 3 goals tonight. Arguably, 2 of them were not kind of tactical. They were much more like set pieces, but the manager's working on these things. The players are clearly working on elements of this stuff. you get goals from set pieces because that's how set pieces work. They're there to give you a level of advantage. So don't take away from this, because the overall open play system isn't working for Manchester United, mainly down to injuries and the structure in the field, doesn't mean that there aren't other bits that are ticking. It's not one big timeline. There are lots of little timelines going alongside each other, all at different progression points. Some people are down here, beyond the camera, in terms of progress. Some people are all the way back here, in terms of we are just starting the journey as to how people fit into this team. So it's just worth remembering and acknowledging that. When it rains, it pours at Manchester United because it's easier to make it pour. But it's reductive, boring, lazy analysis. And United created more than enough chances through Højlund, mostly, but also through the midfield, through Casemiro. I actually thought Eriksen, I quite enjoyed some of his performances this evening. And I get it, like, it's frustrating. But there's something there. Anyway, hope you guys really appreciate the video. Hope you enjoyed it. You know, I'm not telling you to appreciate it, but, you know, enjoy it. A couple of individual errors don't make a team. I hope it goes well. Not so well that you finish above us, but, you know, I hope it goes well. By the way, I know I just said that you might need Kim. How frustrating. I think Højlund could play a very key striker role. But how frustrating is it that as Manchester United, you look at the combination of Sane and Kane and you kind of go, ooh, look at how invigorated he looks. Look how driven he looks. Could that be Manchester United with a key building piece? Some young, hungry, pacey, tricky wingers / attackers just off him? Let me know what you think in the comments below. See you guys in a little while. Much love. Bye.